have an unidentified flying object.
I'm Jack Osborne, and you're listening.
This is Moulton Howe, and you're listening to...
I'm Richard C. Hoagland, and you're listening to...
I'm Art Bell, and you're listening to Dr. J Radio Live.
We have an unidentified flying object.
Johnny Webb, what do you got?
This one's very interesting. It's very similar to what I thought about, and I believe I spoke to Linda a couple of years ago regarding this. But this comes from Heather in Kent.
Where on the phone or in England or
She's
a
on
conference?
Facebook. I'm in London, but I monitor our Facebook for Europe and England. And this one came in on Facebook, directed at Linda. And it says, you earlier mentioned a crash retrieval where human body parts were present, ? And then it goes on to say, I've just this week watched a new release video of a British ufologist called Richard D. Hall, and he shared a video of the famous Guataparang Brazilian human mutilation case from 1988. He showed this mutilated body, and he claimed that you, Linda Moulton Howe, had concluded it was Agent Orange in your findings.
That's right.
But then he, Richard D. Hall, showed a new second possible case of human mutilation in Ibituba, Brazil, reported on the 22nd of June in 2009, very close by to the 1988 case. Again, he showed images of a young 17-year-old female, Lysindra Hart Benedict. Now, photos with her and her family, and then goes on to show police case photos where her body was found on wasteland off the Brazilian 101 freeway. A 37-year-old man was arrested, but later acquitted without charge. The murder is still unsolved. Hall shows that the case photos and claims that almost the same injuries, catcher mutilation injuries, were on the body. Her lips, jaw stripped, eyes and socket removed, incisions into armpits, and extraction holes showing internal organ removals. And above all, no blood in the victim's body or vicinity. The question is, do you, Linda, still stand by your claim of Agent Orange, or do you now see a pattern very similar to animal mutilation cases that are still ongoing in England?
I'm glad that you have shared this from Richard Hall. I'm familiar to some extent with his work in England, and I think he does try to report facts. And let me try to take this apart a little bit. First, back in the 1988 time period, when those first 2 or 3 photos of that man in Brazil was presented by A.J. Gavard at a conference, I believe it was in Nevada someplace, I got a call from someone at the conference who had seen the photos, called me up in Philadelphia where I was based and said, you've got to see these photos of this human mutilation. And that A.J. Gavard referenced you and your work with animal mutilations as being the same as what happened to this man. Well, that startled me because A.J. Gavard had never once called me, talked to me, interviewed me, showed me photos, nothing. I'm hearing this from somebody who was attending that conference, and they sent me a packet of these photos that apparently Gavard was selling at that conference, which I thought was a very distasteful thing to do, no matter what had happened to that man, to take this murdered victim and sell those photos at a conference in Nevada. But that's how I ended up getting the photos. Well, I had a medical doctor friend in the Philadelphia area where I was living, and so I asked him, could I just come over for 5 minutes? I wanted to show you photos and just want your quick reaction. That's what I did. So I didn't front load. I didn't say anything. I just laid the photos down in front of that medical doctor, and he said, oh, I've seen a lot of that in Vietnam. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, that's what Agent Orange does to human skin. It burrows in, cauterizes as it goes, so there's no blood, and it leaves black carbon rings around where the Agent Orange has landed on the skin. So you end up with bloodless penetrations into bodies like this. So that's where my first exposure to that Brazil body, and the doctor having had exposure experientially in Vietnam with Agent Orange and what it did to human bodies. That's that bead. Now, from what you've just read from Richard Hall, if the skin, because I haven't seen this, I guess I've got to see his documentary or talk with him about exchanging some information here. I have a huge body of photos and information and firsthand experience that I have had with so many animals, large and small, in the field. And I'm pretty familiar with what to look for in animal mutilations where there is no bleeding because the hemoglobin has been cooked at the excision, or the collagen has been cooked, and we don't know what that instrument is because no carbon residue is left. That's totally opposite of what happened in the Brazil cases of the man who had the black carbon around the wounds that the doctor said was Agent Orange. So we've got different physical hard data here. And what I would need to do is to see a medical document from this girl. Was, in fact, the collagen and the hemoglobin cooked at the excisions, and was the blood at the arterial level and down to the capillary level, was it actually removed, and was it removed in such a way that the veins and the arteries and the capillaries did not collapse, which is not considered to be physically possible? There are a lot of things that I would like to learn. If, in fact, this girl that Richard Hall is describing meets all those criteria that we find in the animals, and it is in the category of a human mutilation like all the animals that have been going on for at least a century, I would say that in all of the cases that I've studied, all of the countries I have been in, all of the information that I get, I only know of maybe half a dozen cases that might have fallen into a human mutilation like the animals. If it has occurred, if this girl that Richard Hall is describing is in that category, it is still not in the thousands and thousands of cases of the animals, large and small, that have been around this planet for at least 100 years. My guess is for thousands of years, that animal sacrifices of a quote-unquote religious category were probably the same animal mutilations as are ongoing today, and that animal mutilations, to the best of my knowledge, provide two services for non-humans. One is sustenance, the other is a genetic harvest to make bodies. So if this girl falls in that category, I would be able to tell a lot by seeing a medical document, but even if it did, to the best of my knowledge, it doesn't happen very often if that is of any help to people listening. The other category that we haven't discussed, which is extremely important, are all of the missing adults and children.
Very good topic.
That would be the big, big subject that cannot be proven because an absence is an absence of evidence.
I'm actually really glad you brought that fact up before I jump to this caller and all these other questions, because there are so many cases of people missing. They use dogs, and the dogs will say, for instance, trace them to the forest and then they're gone. Or trace them to a certain spot and just boom, gone. Okay, we have another unknown caller. You're live on the air. Welcome.
Okay. Hi, Dr. J. Hi, Linda. My name is Daniel from Western Maryland. This is an amazing show you guys have tonight.
Thank you. And thank Linda.
Thank you.
Yes. And Linda, I'd have to let you know that you are an extreme inspiration to me, one of my heroes. You're responsible for really broadening my mind, and I just wanted to thank you.
Oh,
But,
I appreciate that.
I have a quick question. I'm a little bit off topic from the mutilation deal, but my question is related to one of your Earth Files reports recently involving this Tom DeLonge character.
Yeah.
And you guys were discussing whistleblowers earlier in the program, but my question is specific to Tom DeLonge and some of the things that he's been talking about lately. I guess it was maybe late March where he was talking to George Knapp about his recent contacts with, contacts within the military-industrial complex. And he is working to bring out information which kind of paints the picture that these people within the military complex are actually heroes. And the secrecy is apparently a good thing. And I just wanted to, ask the question, what do you guys think about that as far as, Project Bluebeam is concerned? And is the stuff that Tom DeLonge is bringing forward, is it not creating an alibi for these, what I think are bad people in the military-industrial complex? But, he seems to be painting a picture that they're really heroes. And I just wanted to get your comment on that.
I understand your question. And if you remember earlier in the program, I said, and I heartfelt, that I really think that there have been super patriots in the FDR, Truman, Eisenhower administration, even going to Kennedy, who thought that in putting their fingers in every possible leak, hurting people, intimidating people, strict policies of denial, non-disclosure agreements, that it became a layer of this nation from World War II on at least, in which the most important subjects on the planet, like 1984, Orwell, were put under such a thick screen of denial that we essentially have now a country that is split in two. There is a black, and black doesn't necessarily mean insidious or evil. I don't mean it that way. Black, dark, an area of which that we in the unwashed tax-paying public, we have no access, never will have access. And it is in that dark underbelly of a sort that all of the advanced extraterrestrial back engineering of technologies have in some cases propelled us to the digital age that we are in right now, and it is based on extraterrestrial back engineering. That is a fact. I think Philip J. Corso's The Day After Roswell is one of the most important books in terms of his first-hand experiences with that. And to not get off track, to come back to Tom DeLonge, I really like Tom. He called me for the first time in January of 2016. We must have talked for about 3 hours on the phone. It was refreshing to hear somebody say, Linda, I don't really know much, but I have been interested in UFOs and ETs since I was little. And I have been a rock star of sorts, and I can communicate with the millennial generation. And what I have felt was the most important thing I could possibly do is bring that part of my life to bear on what I know is not the truth, meaning that our government has not felt like it could tell the truth. And that without going into all of the background about how he ended up with a group of what he calls 10 advisors in military and alphabet soup.
Right, it's a long story, I know.
He did say to me, I will not say or do anything that they tell me not to do, because the trade-off is that he wants to keep unfolding the 3 books under Secret Machines, the documentaries, Hollywood features that will be based on fact in collaboration with these people who I'm going to speculate at least based on the 3 hours that he and I talked about in January, and we've talked a couple of times since. And then we did this big interview for you and for others listening. I recommend highly that you go to earthfiles.com. You go down the page until you come to May 28th, 2016.
Yes.
And this is UAPs and alien gods, in quotes, in which Tom DeLonge did a long interview with me, and I think this is very important. And he says, one of the quotes, I'm looking at it right now from the interview with me, and this was an interview I did right after Secret Machines was released. This is Tom. I was told that there are numerous ET, in quotes, gods fighting amongst themselves. That's absolutely resonates with what I've been told 10 years ago, that there are geopolitical, territorial, conflicting extraterrestrials right now on this planet. They don't get along, that there's conflict with them, and that's part of what I think our government didn't want us to know. So Here's Tom DeLonge. I was told that there are numerous ET gods fighting amongst themselves, and they are interjecting themselves into human affairs. I am being told that a lot of this is being kept secret because we are trying not to initiate a conflict with an adversary that we poorly understand, close quote. And this goes right to the heart of your question. If it is true what Tom DeLonge is being told, what William Mills Tompkins, the naval engineer, told me, what Lynn Buchanan, the remote viewer who worked with John Burroughs and me on Phenomenon Radio in the fall, and said that when he was working for the Defense Intelligence Agency at Fort Meade, and he was tasked to remote view certain categories of extraterrestrials, no one coming up with some kind of euphemistic words. They were just looking and remote viewing extraterrestrials. He said, Linda, there are so many, and it isn't just in this Milky Way galaxy. That's what William Mills Tompkins says. It goes out beyond galaxies upon galaxies, and if you want to feel sad about something, it is to realize that there are wars upon wars going on, galaxies after galaxies, by all kinds of intelligences over territory and power, which writ small on Earth is the same problem here. We reflect our makers in an odd sort of way. But Lynn said there is an intelligence that wants humanity erased from this planet. Jump to my 1998 book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2. Half a dozen people in the abduction syndrome that have been exposed to the resurrection tubes, cloning, rapid cycle cloning. They all say there is an intelligence out there that wants humanity erased. What is that about? Lynn Buchanan said, as far as I can tell, Linda, and the other remote viewers, we have lots of allies, like the Prometheus in the Greeks and the Enki and the Anunnaki, that for some reason we have people or entities, intelligences that have championed us because there is something about this current model of Homo sapiens sapien that they admire or that they respect or that we are something special. Whatever we are, we do have allies. The question is this: what is the strength of the, quote, this is Tom DeLonge, an adversary that we poorly understand versus allies that might understand the adversary and not be able to defeat it? What is the balance here, or the imbalance? Now, if you're in the government of the United States or Germany in World War II, or whatever geopolitical territorial group has been on Earth and been under the influence, that's important, the influence, the manipulation of competing geopolitical territorial fighting extraterrestrials, and they use us and this planet and many other planets in many other solar systems like chess games, territory to be fought over and controlled, genes to be mixed and matched and manipulated to create what? If you have the ability to create any kind of life form containers and you can control them, it means that nations and humans become territory to fight through over geopolitical territory with Middle East, ISIS, and what's going on in the world today, and all the other wars of the past. So you finally get to a point where I understand to some degree with great sympathy that if Tom DeLonge is going to be working with a group of 10 who are going to try to come at all of this and get it finally out in the world public to all 7.2 billion and counting,
right,
that the gods of mythology are not gods. They are not mythological. They have always been other creatures from this universe that have the ability to move through interstellar space and have had an alien presence on this earth, possibly largely underground, for literally 270 million years, one DIA guy told me, and that they've been responsible for all kinds of experiments. And as one man told me, he said, Linda, there really have been unicorns and centaurs and dragons floating around in the air of Earth. My God. And so you really, what I've come to finally, I'm sort of at peace with fear and tension. I have come to a kind of peace to all this that I hope anybody listening to me could share, and that is, no matter how many life forms are through the trillions, I think that's a safe word to use, trillions of suns in this universe that have solar systems and planets, all of the matter world came from something that I call the divine field that has no entropy. And that when you look at all the matter worlds as something that David Bohm, the physicist, who is so brilliant, and said all mass is frozen light, and you get further into a real physical truth, that every photon from one end of this 13.9 billion light-year universe to the other is connected, entangled in some miraculous, incomprehensible way. We are mass. We are frozen light. We are in a matter universe that is dominated by entropy. That is the winding down of energy. Yin and yang symbol seems to be how everything works in this universe. Where there is light, there is darkness, and where there is darkness, there is light. And there is something about this incredible universe with bad and good, with light and dark, with good and what seems to be evil. It's all mixed together, but if we knew the whole bloody truth, and that the only thing that counts is the part of us that we cannot see, and maybe the ETs cannot control, is our soul. And it's not mythological either. And that we are in a grand revolution going forward from 2016. I feel it in my bones and my being. We're in a grand revolution. We are going to break out of this we are somebody else's androids kept on this planet. And I think that we have a chance, if everybody is told the truth at the same time, and that there aren't governments and political bodies that keep power because they have other truths that the rest of us do not have, if we finally come out and the whole bloody story is told, and we get to see the three-dimensional hologram of the history of this planet and solar system, which I'm told does exist, that we might finally get to a point where we would no longer be afraid
yes,
of meeting these other beings.
And I agree. I think that pretty much answers my question. We've got the two sides of it. There's the good people, the bad people. I would just hope that if this disclosure ever does occur, that we look at our own people even in this country, if we were to limit it to that small of an area, that the people who have done the murdering to keep the secrecy, the people that have done the horrible things to maintain this secrecy, I hope that they, in some way, are held accountable for what they did or the part they played in almost betraying their own race. And that was kind of
beyond that. May you and I and Dr. J and everybody listening tonight, may we pray seriously, may we pray that we are one with the light and that the light is one with us and that we are in the hands of the divine forever, and that's the important part. That's what we need to hang on to, and that in an act of compassion in that context, to forgive all of the people in this government and other governments who have ridden a very difficult horse, not always of their own making or choosing, and that if we could go forward from 2016, in which every nation and every person and every government, finally everything was out in the open, good, bad, and indifferent, I think that might be shocking to some people, but I think it would strengthen humanity on this planet, that we would grow up fast, we would be forced to grow up, and maybe even join intergalactic trade. And I'm not kidding. Lynn Buchanan says there are all kinds of trade routes in which Earth is on trade routes. How incredible would that be to move from a period where we were all feeling like everything was dark and depressed and Orwellian to having the truth be told and saying, okay, let's get past worrying about who did what. Let's join an interstellar trade Star Trek, and let's get on with evolving in this universe as really whole beings. That's my prayer.
I agree.
I agree.
And I hope everybody out there globally prays upon this. Thank you so much, Marilyn. We are coming out close on time. There are so many questions. I have to apologize, everybody. There is no way I could even get to a fraction of them. But there are a couple that are so important I think we should ask. First, let's check over the Atlantic Pond. Johnny, live in London, who's been scouring some of the questions that I haven't seen. Johnny, what do you got?
Well, this one I thought was interesting, and we haven't touched the subject yet, but it was from Florine in CERN in Switzerland on Facebook. And she asks, can Linda please tell us what you understand about crop circles, their meaning, and the recent, he says recent circles appearing not just in Great Britain, but now internationally. And it says, P.S., sending you much love.
Oh, thank you very much. I will try to answer shortly that I think that we have over and over again demonstrations in crop formations where there's been binary code in crop formations. It's always the same theme, warning us that there is danger out there, but that there appears to be something that is trying to help us. The same kind of message has been coming through people in the human abduction syndrome for quite a while, too, reflecting or echoing the crop formations, which I do think could be time traveler communications, as odd as that seems, not necessarily in the extraterrestrial, reptilian, blonde, gray category, but literally time travelers who have a vested interest in trying to help current humanity, because whatever we are and whatever time travel path we're on could affect more than we understand from where we are right now. I know that's complicated for a fast answer, but I think the crop formations are largely saying life is not guaranteed if we don't wake up and change what we're doing as humans.
And that's the key, wake up. This is a really important question because of the location. I apologize for what you must be going through. This is Konstantin in Kiev. Says, can you tell us more about what you wrote on Earth Files about Russian robot runs away?
Oh, I think that is such an incredible story because I think it is a harbinger of things to come, and it is a metaphor, oddly, for what humans are to the non-humans. We are perceived as somebody else's androids in a very strange way. And this was June 17th. I posted this at earthfiles.com. Russian robot runs away and blocks traffic. Now, this isn't amazing. There's this company in Perm, Russia. It's called Promobot. And there was a scientist who had the robot out in the yard of the company working, quote unquote. The robot was learning automatic movement algorithms on the Promobot company's testing ground when an engineer forgot to shut a gate and the robot took off into the middle of a nearby street. And I raised at Earth Files, was it a PR stunt? That's possible. Or another signal of artificial intelligence challenges to this human world. Because if this is a robot in the process of being made by humans, working with algorithms, so that this robot, and this is when you go and read at the website, you will see, they're trying to make robots that can work as, let's say, maids, butlers, people... anything working around, yeah. Okay. Then it means that they have to get algorithms into this robot's brain that will be very aware of the environment around it at all times and be able to take signals and analyze the world in order to help its human keeper. And this is why this is so interesting. A gate was left open, and what does this robot do? It goes through the gate out into the street. Then it would have been confronted with so much cars. When you look at the video, at this video that was shot of the policemen coming, cars, buses coming to a screeching halt and then trying to move slowly around this robot while the policeman is trying to go over and protect the robot. The robot is standing there unmoving, staring back where? Is staring back across the street from where it came, and it must be looking at that open gate, and a scientist is coming, and it was overwhelmed. It was overwhelmed by the world that it entered, but it got into that world outside, sort of like going through Alice in Wonderland's mirror, because something in that evolving new birthing robot brain looked and saw and perceived that the gate open was a space to go through, and by God, it took off. And that is, in so many ways, when you watch this video and you think about where we are as humans, trying to understand who we are and our relationship to a planet that we really didn't evolve with. We were created on. We're sort of like that robot. Where are we going to go? What algorithms do we have that will get us to a new ground to stand on in our relationship with the whole universe, let alone non-humans already on this planet? And to do so without fear, to do so with courage, because if you approach all of this, the animal mutilations for me, as seemingly repulsive and difficult as they were, I tried always to stay in curiosity and wanting to just know the truth. And that has gotten me along a lot of dangerous and difficult paths. But I am here talking with you tonight and sharing what I pray that we will, like this robot, will be able to go through the gate, and we may be overwhelmed by a lot of traffic we don't understand. But in the end, the robot survived. Somebody came and got it back into that yard to try to teach it more so that the next time it could go out onto that sidewalk and be able to handle that environment. That is humanity today.
Let me make this challenge for everybody out there. Is if you live in Russia or former Eastern Soviet Union or even Asia, it's standard almost for every car to have a camera. If you got more footage, please send it to Linda Moulton Howe via earthfiles.com or to drjradiolive.com, and I will get it to Linda as well.
Oh, that's a great idea, and I would like everybody listening, no matter what the language, because we've got translations these days, please, if you have firsthand experience or photos or videos, email me at earthfiles@earthfiles.com. Put Dr. J in the subject line. I'll open all of those emails. And always remember that when you think about how to get in touch with me, think of a reporter who files news about the Earth. earthfiles@earthfiles.com, same word twice, and my news website, 15 years, nearly 3,000 in-depth reports, 60,000 images, is earthfiles.com.
I have to ask this final question because this person's obviously awake at this time. This comes from all the way from Frankfurt, Germany. Stefan. Linda once covered ETs with collars on their neck. What's the importance?
Oh, I wish I could answer, but it has been consistent for 50 years of people in the human abduction syndrome. When they encounter the Ebens, the ones with the pear-shaped chins and the large heads that are usually about 5 feet tall and have 4 fingers, they encounter these capes with collars. Some of them have 2 or 3 layers of collars, and I'm talking about collars. Think of olden days when people wore capes, and the capes had collars that came up. Well, imagine having a cape on and having 3 layers of collars around your neck. That has been drawn and sketched many times in my second book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 1, High Strange, Facts and Eyewitnesses. There's a whole section of colored images of a taxonomy of different types of beings. And you will see those collars on capes on the Eben-type beings. I do not know why, and the abductees do not know why. It's the abductees who say under hypnosis, why are they wearing capes with collars?
For all of those questions and callers that I could not get into the show, I do apologize. Obviously, all you have to do is go to earthfiles.com and not just pay attention to what happens each day, which is very important. Scroll back. Look at all the stories. There is so much information there. First, let me give some thanks. I want to thank Angel Espino of the PSN Radio Network for carrying us. Also, Michael Vara and Ira Robinson from Late Night in the Midlands. Thank you, too, for also carrying our show. And all the way across the pond where Johnny Webb is, JC of the Deprogram Radio Network. And, of course, you can hear it directly via our site, drjradiolive.com. Linda, I want to give you, if you had one final statement you'd like to make to everybody, and of course plug in all your information again one last time, what would you have to say, and of course the information?
That I have enjoyed this discussion tonight immensely. Thank you, Dr. J, for giving this moment to share with so many people for an in-depth way, and that I hope everybody listening will want to go to earthfiles.com, where I really, really try to bring you facts and images and keep the complexity of what we're in being laid out as best I can in as many facets as possible. And I will look forward to working with you and your international audience again in the future.
Thank you so much, Linda. I wish I could say more about future guests, but just check the website. And, of course, you will get to hear this archived show once it makes its way around the world, and all the future guests, and not to mention all the past archive videos. With that being said, I am Dr. J, signing off for the night.